Hello everybody, my name is Connor and we are here finally with our Lucci games. We are on Lucci and Lucci is treating us well, guys. I am surprised, honestly. But yeah, so we end up going second. Our opponent plays out the flampe, and as you guys see, we start with stage. We win the dice roll, we go second, and we get stage in our opening hand. We are so lucky. And that luck kind of just continues throughout this game, honestly. And there are a couple parts in this game where I'm explaining to my opponent how, you know, the deck is working and things like that, because he, at the beginning of the tournament, he said, like, I'm not familiar with Lucci. I haven't played against a Lucci, so I'm gonna ask some questions. And I said, no worries, you know, this is locals, no big. I'm happy to explain, let you read, all that good stuff. And yeah, so he plays out the Makino, which I really like the Makino. If you guys were around when I was playing the Katakuri, it's a similar idea to that 6-cost Newgate, where you take one of your life, you look at your card, you look at the cards in life and you rearrange them. So he plays out the Makino, and then he plays out Garp, and he gets the Sabo, the big Sabo, and then swings 6, and we get another Gecko, which is something. I was gonna say it's not the A drop we want to see, but we do end up top decking the E show. If you are playing Lucci and you are playing into a black, yellow Luffy, one of the tips that I was recommended was to mulligan for E show. E shows are so clutch in this game, and you guys are gonna see why in this game. It's clutch. So my opponent's going ahead getting his Dawn. He's got a. It's kind of weird that I'm not playing any bodies or swinging. Like, I just didn't have anything to play for 4 Dawn, and I don't want to swing into black yellow Luffy. One of the things that a lot of the players in my area have told me is make Luffy take his own life. Make him use those resources to take his own life. And I think that works pretty well for me here. So my opponent plays out the 5-cost Luffy, which can pop. I think it's a 4-cost and under. And I have 2 geckos in hand and nothing in trash. So I'm thinking about the gecko play, and it's kind of weird. But I end up 0-cost eventing, trashing Suru, and Helmeppo. And this is just because I want them in trash. I don't want to 0-cost event Ishu away, obviously. That's I goofed his name, don't worry about it. But I have nothing in trash. I need something in trash, and we end up top decking Kaku. And I'm like, cool, I can pop that Luffy, but I only have 1 CP card in trash. Kaku, you need to put 2 CP cards from trash into the bottom of your deck, and then you can KO a 3-cost. With Lucci and stage, I can get that 5-cost Luffy to 3-cost easily, and that most of my blockers are, I have Sabos, which are 5-cost, but Rebecca is a very important blocker in this deck, and she's a 4-cost, 0 power. She is literally Luffy fodder, so I want to make sure, even though I haven't seen a Rebecca yet, I want to make sure that Luffy is off the field. Not only that, it's a body that can swing and hurt me besides leader, so I end up swinging 5 into his leader for no effect. I just want to be able to use my leader effect, and hopefully mill a CP card, and we end up milling Tempest Kick, which is great. That's 2 CP cards in my trash. I tap Annie's lobby, I bring Luffy down to 2, which in this matchup, the stage is so good. I think I don't really see stage a lot this tournament. I see stage, I think, half of my games. But we are able to tap 5 Dawn and play the Kaku down, blowing up the 5-cost Luffy. And I'm just explaining to my opponent that I am going to KO his Luffy and send these 2 CP cards to the bottom of your trash. Or to the bottom of my trash, not his trash. But yeah, honestly, the 0-cost event is probably one of my favorite cards in the deck. It is so useful. It's so good. I know that some Lucci lists aren't running it, but you should. I think it's great. And my Lucci list is going to be down below. and I'm really happy with my Lucci list and how it's treating me. So go ahead, give it a try if you're interested. I don't think it's anything too wild, but it's been a lot of fun. I'm having a lot of fun with Lucci, and I am surprised by it. I was a Gecko, Lucci, Black Deck hater, and I think I'm a fan now. But don't worry, I still have Boa. Boa's not going anywhere. I'm just on my Lucci streak right now. But yeah, so I'm ready to E-show him next turn. My opponent he ends up playing the Sabo, and that to me is like cool. His hand is not giving him what he needs. He can't take this last life. If he didn't play Sabo, there's a world where I could have gone for game, but I can't get over Sabo. And with that, honestly, with that massive hand, going for game would be wild. So he ends up playing the new Brothers Bond, getting a search off, and you can see I'm looking at my hand. I'm a little nervous because if he, gets a big Luffy, if he goes, big with Luffy, I'm in trouble. But he just ends up swinging 6, and we get a Kaku, which is fine. I can't pop anything this turn, and that is fine because this is, I think this is the E-show turn. He's got a really big hand. I think he said he had about 6 or 7 cards in hand, but these are cards that he's done searches for. He's taken his life. This is, I think, the perfect E-show turn. Everything, I can't KO anything, and I don't have much in trash, so Gecko, not it. But I end up playing E-show, and I'm explaining to him that I get to pick 2 cards out of his hand, and we get the baby ace, which is fine. And then we end up getting his Gecko out of hand, which is massive. That E-show literally turned the tide of this game. He was about to go honestly crazy if he was going to be able to get his last life and play and just kind of pop off here. And because E-show was able to grab the Gecko, I think we really stopped that. Now, he could get a Gecko later in game, but we at least delayed it, and now we have 2 bodies on board, and if he can't make his leader, massive, we could potentially go for game depending on what he does with his Sabo. But, yeah, so here we're asking some of the players next to us because, as you guys hopefully have seen from the vlog and the finals and all that things, we have a bunch of very skilled players locally, and my opponent and I we're still working on learning the ropes. And so we're trying to figure out if my opponent can play down a Hiyori, take his life, and he doesn't have to put another body there, and he can just Luffy ability. So we asked the players next to us. One of them is playing Black Yellow Luffy, and because of the way that it is worded and the semicolons, we decide yes, that's fine. You can take your life. You don't have to put something up there. Of course, if you guys have the official ruling and it's different, let me know. But my cat agrees. I don't even know if you guys can hear, but it ultimately doesn't affect the game too much. No spoilers, but he ends up putting the 2 Dawn on Luffy to put some bodies in his life, which I think you can tell by the way I'm playing with my cards in my hand. I'm like, shit, here we go again. Black Yellow Luffy is, I think every Black Yellow Luffy match I've played is just a really hard match for me, and I struggle with the match. And especially when I feel okay until they get to the point where they have no life. Then it just goes all out of control. It is tough. So he ends up putting 2 5-cost Luffys, which I'm like, okay, that's scary, but and you can see I'm looking through my cards and I'm trying to figure out how do I pop both of these, and I unfortunately don't have what I need to pop both of these, but yeah, so he ends up playing the 2 Egghead Luffys, which is such a strong card. tapping 1. He ends up Ice Aging Isho, and he ends up popping Isho with the Luffy, which I was like, shit, that was a really good play by my opponent. I want to give props where props due. And yeah, the finger wagging is the math finger. So he swings at life, and I don't have the counter to counter out, so I take it, and we get a Khalifa, and we get a Khalifa off the top of deck, which is great. So I get so incredibly lucky here, and I will tell you why. So I'm thinking, okay, it is a Gecko turn. I need to Gecko, and I'm looking at my cards. I'm like, okay, there's a Gecko, there's a Rebecca. Rebecca's in my hand and not in trash. And I, for some reason, think I can play the Rebecca. So I'm doing the math. I'm trying to figure out if I can pop Sabo and Luffy. But because I want to play Rebecca, I think that popping Luffy is more of a priority. So we are doing math. I'm thinking about how best to KO, and I just go ahead and swing the 5, and I mill, and I get a Rebecca in my trash. When I saw that Rebecca, I was like, oh shit, I needed that Rebecca in my trash, not in my hand. So I initially say -1 Sabo, and I go, oh no, sorry, can I -1 to Luffy? My opponent says, yeah, that's fine. And I'm like, thank you, you know, it's locals, we're all homies. So I get Luffy down to a 2 cost, and I'm gonna Rebecca Brook. I don't have a Spandam in trash, so, you know, nothing, even though, you know, even if I did, Luffy's not low enough. But I end up dropping Gecko, and Gecko ends up playing out the Rebecca. And then Rebecca, I am trying to decide between... So I'm trying to decide between Suru and Helmeppo. And I'm nervous about my math, because this is kind of the first time I brought back, well, at least in paper, I brought back the Brook to KO something. So I was like, okay, I want to make sure my math is right. So for safety, we're going to go Helmeppo. Rebecca plays the Brook and pops the Luffy. And as I mentioned, my opponent is still kind of learning how to play against Lucci. So I'm walking him through how I popped Luffy, which is Gecko plays out Rebecca, and Helmeppo, Rebecca grabs Brook, and Brook pops Luffy. So it's a bit crazy, and that's not even the craziest thing that I, you know, am able to do with a Gecko in this deck. It's kind of nuts. And so I'm feeling pretty confident, and I'm sorry about the table getting bumped a lot. There was a lot of... the table got bumped a lot at this tournament. It was a, 29-player tournament, so lots of people. So my opponent goes ahead, and he plays out the Garb Search, and he grabs the baby ace, and so my opponent told me after the game that we ripped a Gecko out of his hand with the Isho play, which was, as the kids say, Pog. He does a Garp Search, and I don't know, I can't remember which Garp Search it was, because I was in my focus mode. I was very worried at this point. I was like, oh no, this is bad, I might lose here. And he tells me later after the game that one of those Garps put his other 3 Geckos at the bottom of his deck, which is oh so rough. I can't express just how unlucky that is. But my opponent's trying to figure out what his best option is at this point. I do have a pretty big board. Granted, I know Helmeppo isn't very scary, Brook's not super scary, and neither is Rebecca, but the Gecko is a huge body, and the Kaku is also a pretty strong size. So, and thankfully I have lots of counter in my hand and the Rebecca, so I'm feeling okay. I see my opponent add on the 2 to Dawn, and yeah, I can see he's got 2 in hand. His hand size is pretty low, and he puts the ace first. He ends up playing out the ace, which definitely worries me, don't get me wrong. The rush ace is definitely scary, but then he does put Dawn onto that garb, but he was like, I played one of these garbs out before, and I said, yes, you know, I remember. And he swings with that garb. I think it was technically the garb next to ace, but he swings with garb. I counter out with Rebecca. He swings 8 with ace. I counter out, and he swings with lead, and I go ahead and I block with Rebecca. I do have another gecko, so I am like, okay, I could do another gecko play. I can pop ace with, you know, basically what I have on board. And I think I have another brook in trash if I'm not mistaken. But I end up, so my opponent is a 7k lead. And I end up swinging 8 into lead. And he ends up taking it. He does have his blocker and 1 card in hand. So it's 8, 9. I swing 9 at lead, and he blocks. And I swing the rest on Gecko. I think it's 15. And we get it. So, super stoked with my first win against Black Yellow Luffy. And I know you guys may not be the biggest fan of watching me play Lucci, but I am having a really good time. In my tournaments, both tournaments I've played, I've gone 3-1. So I feel like I'm finding a deck that really works for me. So hopefully you guys like it. And as I said, no worries, Boa's not going anywhere. We'll still be playing Boa. We'll still be mixing up the decks, but I think Lucci's gonna be my sweat deck. But I'll shut up now. Thank you guys so much for watching my videos. I think we're almost at 300 subs, and that is so cool to me. I'm having so much fun doing this, and I wouldn't be doing this without the support from you guys. So thank you guys so much. If you guys liked this video, hit that like button down below. It helps me out more than you could ever know. Go ahead and subscribe if you are new, and I will see you guys in the next video. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day.